Today, we're diving into the work of Martin Heidegger, who is, without a doubt, one of the most brilliant and also one of the most controversial philosophers of the 20th century. His ideas totally changed the game for how we think about what it means to be human, and they force us to ask a pretty uncomfortable question.
You know that feeling, right? Like you're just playing a part, checking off boxes on some list, but the life you're actually living, it doesn't really feel like yours. Well, that exact feeling, that's the jumping off point for Heidegger's entire philosophical journey. Okay, so Heidegger's huge project, which he lays out in his masterpiece, Being in Time, was to get back to a question that sounds super simple but is actually incredibly deep. What does it actually mean to be? He thought that pretty much all of Western philosophy had forgotten to even ask this, and he was going to be the one to drag it back into the spotlight. To even start, he had to invent a new word for us, Dasein. It literally just means being there. Now, this isn't just another word for person. It's about our unique way of existing. You see, a rock is, but it has no idea that it is. It doesn't care. But you are a being there. You're always in a world, you're aware of yourself, and your own existence is this constant project that you're always working on. So this is where it gets really interesting. Heidegger lays out the whole structure of this Dasein. And to understand how we can live an authentic life, we first have to see all the ways we get trapped in our day-to-day. He says it all comes down to 3 core characteristics of our existence. First up, there's thrownness. I mean, just think about it for a second. You didn't choose your parents, or the country you were born in, or even the century you're living in. You were just thrown into it. Like you just appeared in the middle of a movie that was already playing, into a world with a whole set of rules you didn't create. But, and this is a huge but, we are not just victims of all that. And that brings us to number 2, existentiality. This is our freedom. This is our uniquely human power to take all that stuff we were thrown into and do something with it, to project ourselves into the future and actually create our own meaning. And here's the trap. The third characteristic is fallenness. This is how we get lost. We get so sucked into the gossip, the daily grind, the endless distractions of the world, what Heidegger calls being absorbed in the they self, that we totally forget about our own unique potential, our authentic self. As you can see, just gets buried under all this noise. So, if we're fallen, how do we get back up? How do we find our way back to an authentic life? Well, Heidegger says there's a specific feeling, a particular mood, that can literally jolt us awake. It all starts with this deep sense of emptiness. And we're not just talking about having a bad day here. This is a profound, unsettling feeling that just washes over you when you realize you're just going through the motions and it all feels, well, meaningless. He gives this feeling a special name, angst or dread. Now, this is really important. This is not the same as fear. Fear always has an object. You're afraid of a spider or of giving a speech. Dread has no object. It's this free-floating anxiety about being in the world at all. It's that sudden, terrifying moment when all the everyday distractions just melt away and you're left completely alone with the fact of your own existence and the fact that it will end. This dread is what forces you to confront what he calls your being to death, the simple, unavoidable fact that your death is the one thing in life that is absolutely 100% yours. Nobody can do it for you. And that shocking realization is what finally wakes up the call of conscience. It's this quiet inner voice that calls you away from the crowd, away from the they self, and back to your own possibilities. It's a call to finally take responsibility for your own life. But finding this authentic self isn't just some internal psychological battle. Later in his career, Heidegger's thinking took a turn. He became convinced that the place where being truly shows itself isn't just in our heads, but out in the world, through language, and especially through poetry. Okay, now stick with me, because this gets a little weird, but it's really cool. He starts talking about difference, but spelled with a hyphen. He's not just talking about the difference between, a cup and a saucer. He's talking about a fundamental betweenness that has to exist before there can be a world on one side and things that appear in that world on the other. For Heidegger, this difference is the primordial event that makes reality possible in the first place. And this all leads into a pretty wild idea. Heidegger says that we don't speak language. In a much deeper sense, language speaks. It's not just a tool we use to describe stuff that's already there. Language is the event that calls things into being, that forges the connection between world and things. And we're living right in the middle of it. We are thrown into language just like we are thrown into the world.
Of course, it is absolutely impossible to talk about Heidegger's powerful ideas on being authentic and taking responsibility without also talking about the deeply disturbing and controversial facts of his own life. So, in 1933, as Hitler was rising to power, Heidegger became the head of his university and officially joined the Nazi Party. In his big inaugural speech, he actually spoke out against academic freedom and basically aligned the university with the Nazi agenda. Now, he did resign from that post less than a year later, but the true meaning and extent of his involvement is still a subject of intense and very painful debate. And that leaves all of us with the big, difficult question that anyone who reads Heidegger has to wrestle with. Do his terrible political actions completely invalidate his philosophical insights? Or is it possible to find value in the ideas despite the profound moral failures of the man who wrote them? There's really no easy answer here, and it forces us to think hard about the connection between our ideas and the lives we choose to live.